You've probably experienced this more times than you can possibly count, of you intending to say something and then hearing something completely fucking different. Whether it's in a dating context, a friendly context, a business context, getting to know someone, you have definitely encountered a situation where you were misunderstood, or you interpreted something someone else did or said, or how they did it or said it, as rude, disrespectful, etc., and you let it get to you. But at some point, you were made aware that the other person did not intend it. Either they confessed it because, you maybe started an argument, or they clarified it later. Because a lot of times you get upset and then later on you're like, hey, I didn't really like what you said. And they're like, oh, I didn't mean that at all, right? I meant this. And we're talking about situations where they're honest, not someone backtracking and, oh, I didn't mean that, but they definitely did, right? Genuinely a misunderstanding based on miscommunication. And if you can fix this, you can improve every part of your life when it comes to socializing. And everything you're going to do in your life is going to involve socializing on some level, right? Even if you sit in a fucking cave and meditate for 30 years, but then you get out and, you're going to try and teach people what you learned, you got to learn how to communicate, right? So communication is going to affect every part of your life, professional, romantic, familial, friendship, etc. And if you can fix this rampant problem of disconnect between your intentions and what people are hearing, you're just going to massively increase your success, peace, everything, okay? So where is that disconnect happening, right? On what level are your intentions and what you want to communicate being misunderstood? And there's layers to this, right? There is, you're listening to someone, for instance, right? And you're looking off into the distance. I was actually coaching a new client recently. And as I was talking, he was kind of looking off. Now, I knew he didn't mean to look like he's not paying attention. I knew he was paying attention. But I pointed this out to him, and I was like, just so you know, when people are viewing how you're reacting, they are probably going to think you're not paying attention, and they're going to get annoyed or just have a bad reaction. And he's like, and he had this like light bulb moment where he's like, oh my God, I didn't realize I'm coming off like that. Right. But I could clearly see on the Zoom call how he was acting, but I knew, right. He had just paid me a lot of money to talk to me. Right. So he's clearly paying attention. And also when I had taught him a certain lesson, he was like, oh, wow. So I knew he was paying attention, but his body language was saying complete opposite. Right. And I gave him some alternative ways to look while you're listening. Right. Like if you're going to be thoughtful, right? I'm a very thoughtful person when someone's listening. Like I'm going to look off. But what I'm going to do is, because it's kind of hard to think straight when you're staring someone in the eye, right? At least for me, I have to kind of like look off and ponder. While I'm doing it, I'll purposefully. Well, at this point, it's automatic, right? But there was a time where I was like, okay, I need to look like I'm paying attention, and I am, right? But my tendency is to look off. So how am I going to look off, but also look like I'm paying attention? Okay, do this, right? Do a little fucking chin scratch or a little pondering, one of these, right? Or look like you're actually calculating, like, okay, right? Kind of like squint your eyes a little bit, nod a few times, right? Make sure you do make eye contact on occasion to kind of like let them know you're with them. Like you look off and you go, okay, and nod. Do a few right? Or yeah, especially when you really understand something. React emotionally when like, when people are like freestyling with your I'm sure you freestyle at some point with your friends and someone says something cool and you're like, oh shit, right? You can do that kind of nice verbal feedback when someone's just regular talking. Go, okay, yeah. And especially if they make a really good point, reward them for that, right? A lot of people are starved, especially men, for validation and feeling like they actually said something good. So all of these little tips that I just gave you was something that I gave to this guy to simply change how he might be viewed when he's listening to someone so that people don't think he's not paying attention. If you do that with like 100 other habits, or even 5 other habits that you have when you are either listening or speaking, because that's all that's happening, right? When you're socializing with someone, you're either listening to them, you're speaking to them, or you're doing something in their view, right? Like if at work you have a coworker who, this is something I used to deal with when I worked at restaurants and bars, is I tended to be a lot more social with people. So I'd get a lot of fucking tips. But then because I'm talking to the customers, I wouldn't be the one stalking the bar, doing this or doing that. And so sometimes people would make fucking snide comments. Now, sometimes I think they were just jealous that like I could actually socialize with people. But they were sometimes making snide comments, or I could just see in their body language that they felt like they were working harder, even though I was the one actually making us the most money, right? Because I'm getting the nice tips. But when I realized that, I said, okay, I need to maybe cut down a little bit on how much I'm talking to the customers, right? Because I don't need to schmooze them that hard to get the tips or whatever. And then also make sure that I'm helping them on occasion, right? Do all these like little things to make their perception of me not be as strong. Now, if they're going to hate me, they're going to hate me regardless, right? But I can at least lessen it with how much. Oh, I just had an idea for a video. This is what happens when I do videos or coaching. I get so many ideas when I'm coaching. I just start spitting, and then I get an idea. I'm like, oh shit, I got to write that down. So sorry, I had to write down and I just totally wrote it wrong because I was crossing some wires in my mind. But where the fuck was I? Oh yeah. So, you can apply this to so many scenarios where people are observing you, listening to you, or talking to you. That's all that's going to be happening. And then you are going to be observing others, listening to them, and talking to them, right? That is the 1-to-1 or 1-to-15 other people in the room communication. That's all that's going to happen is they're going to listen to you, talk to you, and observe you. That they're going to be kind of filtering you through their senses. And so if you understand that all miscommunications and misunderstandings are going to happen on that route, I'm breaking things down to first principles to make it so ridiculously simple. I know I'm kind of complicating it, but I'm actually not. I'm really simplifying it. I think the overcomplication is when people just give you, oh, just listen more. Oh, just talk. I mean, those are like good, right? But those are here. I'm giving you the base level. Like you were having a misunderstanding because of this. Then as a result, maybe you should talk more or talk less. If you're, talk more, if for instance, you would give the advice like talk more, is one thing I've noticed is a lot of people will think you're an asshole if you don't talk a lot, especially if you have kind of a more maybe, I don't know, hardcore energy, like a little bit of edge or personality. Because when you're quiet, people are going to feel like you're judging them. It's hard to get a gauge on people when they're not talking. It's the quiet guy who's sitting there just observing everything. You're going to assume he's the judgmental wallflower personality. I know that because I've had friends who are that personality, and they do tend to actually be the judgmental wallflower, kind of just sitting there and just watching everything, right? But when you're contributing, people can actually get to know what you're actually fucking thinking. So they're not going to be so ignorant and then making their own assumptions, right? So actually clearly sharing your thoughts and your feelings on whatever people are talking about is going to make them less apprehensive about, okay, what's he thinking? What's he doing? He's judging me, right? So if you're persistently an outcast, which can happen from since you were in high school or whatever, a lot of why that might be happening actually is because you're not trying to talk to people more and you're not expressing yourself enough, which is ironic. And I had this insight in high school, actually, because I was either like class clown and super crazy outgoing, or I was like so quiet. I was very extreme. And I noticed that people would be more hesitant to like connect with me when I was quiet and judgmental. Because at least when I was outgoing, I was still expressing myself. I wasn't an unknown variable. And I have seen it with myself. And then I tested it and I found that people actually were more nice to me when I was more outgoing. Big fucking surprise, right? And I've noticed it not just with myself. I observed it with other people. I was like, why is that person an outcast? And why is this person an incast, right? In the in-group. And a lot of times it's the quiet, shy kid. He is a victim of his own stupidity. He thinks he's being rejected because of this or that. Maybe it's the fact that he's not even fucking trying to connect with people, right? Now, you can, of course, try with people and still be rejected, right? And then that's a different issue. That's okay, your actual communications with others are annoying or needy or arrogant or judgmental or you fucking smell bad. I don't know, right? So do you see how I'm breaking everything down to, okay, where is the disconnect happening? So all I do is I look at a situation and I look for the symptoms and I go, okay, this is how I do coaching. These are how people are reacting to you, right? If you're going up to talking to girls and you're getting rejected from the get, okay, it's something about your first impression, obviously, duh, right? But then you have to see what is their reaction. Are they talking to you and they're like smiling and getting to know you, but then it never really goes further than that? Okay, it's not a social problem. People are interacting with you. It's an attraction problem. On the other hand, and I know this because they're talking to you, but they're not actually attracted to you, right? Now, this could be an even deeper level. Like, are you approaching girls who are giving you signals, which are going to obviously going to improve your success rate? But are you never getting attraction? Okay, well, you're a social guy, which is great. That's a great base. That's like half of seduction, right? But you're not being attractive to them. So it's something in your sexual energy, like how you're dressing, how you're walking, how you're carrying yourself. Maybe you need to kind of tone down on the socializing. But another guy might have the exact opposite problem. He might talk to a lot of girls and get rejected a lot, but with a few of them, they really, really like him and are attracted to him. But he's getting rejected way more than the social guy. Okay, his issue is less of a seductive issue and more of a social issue. Something in his energy is too polarizing. It's too extreme, right? So when it hits, it really hits because that girl's just really into whatever kind of vibe he's giving off. But for the most part, he's just getting crashed out, like just absolutely crashing out. Like the first moment girls see him, they're like, oh, whoa, right? But then some girls are on that wavelength and they're like, I want a one night stand, or, I can feel his sexual energy, or I'm in tune with it. But a guy who would be, and this applies to seduction or friendships in general, right? Are people really, really social with you, but then never want to hang out with you? Or then, people could think you're fake. That might be, like, you might be kind of social, but they get this feeling like, okay, he's kind of plastic, like I don't really know his real intentions. Whereas another guy might have a very polarizing personality, and a lot of people think he's a dick, but the people who do like him really like him because they feel like he's being sincere and genuine and he's not hiding anything, right? So these two guys need to work on completely different things. The sexual guy needs to work on his marketability. The guy with good marketing, who's kind of able to socialize with everything, but he isn't selling anything worth buying, he needs to work on the actual product. Like, what is he actually offering? His marketing is great. His storefront looks good. People are going to go and look at, in the window or even go inside. But then there's nothing worth buying. The other guy has a shitty fucking marketing store, but when you go inside, he's got the coolest stuff and you want to buy it. I think the metaphor is quite clear there, okay? So you see how I'm just breaking down, coming up with the symptoms and then finding what's the root cause. And it's always just a disconnect, right? And that disconnect is either coming from your intentions, like what you're intending to happen or what you're actually offering, right? The social guy, he's giving socializing, but really deep down he has like sexual intentions when it comes to girls, right? Which is something you just need to be honest about and accept, right? But he's not showing it. So the girl's like, I don't know, really, I'm cool talking to you, but there's nothing more there. He needs to work on bringing that to the front and kind of wearing it on his sleeve a little bit harder. The guy who's more of a fuckboy, who comes in with all the sexual energy, he needs to kind of tone it down because he's scaring girls off, right? And he's coming off too much like a player, and girls are thinking, oh yeah, he's just going to use me for a night, or, he's creepy or whatever, right? And so they both need to look at their intentions. And then what they have to do is they have to work on their actual expressions, like the actual skill of how they're expressing themselves, which is where a lot of disconnect happens, right? So either it's the situation where the guy is like looking off and not paying attention and it looks like he's not listening. He needs to look at his actual behavior and change it. But in order to do that, you first have to know what your intentions are. So all miscommunications are mostly happening because either you're not aware of your intentions or you're not aware of your actual behaviors, meaning you're not aware how your intentions are coming off, right? And this is the solution to almost every social problem. Oh, why do girls keep doing this? Or why do people not want to hang out with me? Or why do my parents don't like me? Or why do my siblings don't like me? Or why do my kids don't like, it can apply to fucking everything. Because on some level, either there's a disconnect between your intentions and what people are perceiving, or they're exactly right and your intentions do suck, which is an even deeper, it's kind of a easier thing to be like, oh, I just need to market better, but my intentions are great. And then it's another thing to go, you know what? Maybe I am just a fucking prick. Maybe I just do suck, right? And I would say for most people, it's a mix. I think you definitely are having there's something in my fucking teeth. Let me just get it out rather than trying to sneak it. I think I got it. You probably noticed me like kind of digging in there. All right, it's done. So for most people, it's probably a mix, right? Like there are times when you're having a disconnect between what you want to come off as and then what people are perceiving. But there's probably also a lot of scenarios where you actually just aren't aware of how you're coming off, but it's bleeding through your actual like body language and micro expressions and vocal tonalities. And you just literally aren't aware of it. Like recently I was visiting somewhere and I was working in a kitchen with this guy and we were friends, but he was in charge of the kitchen and I was helping out, and his behavior got kind of weird and like domineering and authoritative, and he was like rude on a couple occasions. And I was like, whoa, this is really weird. And I was like, why is he acting like this? And I was like, okay, well, last time we had hung out, like he wasn't in this position of authority, but now he's in this position of authority. And I was like, well, he's kind of abusing it. And I was like, well, that's weird. I didn't expect him to act like that. But his true nature, because it was like very obvious what he was doing. Right. And I kind of watched a couple times and I called him out on it and he denied it. He outright denied it. He's like, well, I'm not trying to da-da-da-da. And I was like, no, you very clearly are pulling some wannabe alpha male bullshit. Right. And he admitted it a few days later. Like he confessed. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry. Da-da-da. I think he became aware of his behavior, but in the moment he wasn't. And then he got confused by my reactionary behavior where I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Right. He was almost clueless because he didn't have the ability to kind of like, when you're using your phone and you have the camera and you press the button and then just boom, you just see your ugly ass face. Right. You have to have that ability to use the front camera and then look at yourself. Right. Or hold a mirror up to yourself as you're behaving and as you're talking. It's hard to do it in the moment. Like, how good are you with your awareness or mindfulness to have a conversation with someone? And while you're having a conversation, be aware of how you're behaving, your facial expressions, your body language, your vocal tonality. Listen to yourself. But at the same time, also be aware of how you're like what you're saying and actually having the conversation. And what do I say next, right? It's sort of, I think it's what musicians do when they are listening, like they're on stage and they'll have headphones in and they have some speakers that are coming to them rather than, obviously, they're not just listening to the sound. They're actually listening to what it sounds like coming out to them. I think it's called monitors or something like that. And they have to be able to listen to how they're sounding to other people by listening to their own radio, basically, but at the same time, change how they're playing and fix their, whatever octave they're on or their tonality, or maybe they need to, do this or do that. It's very difficult to monitor yourself, but at the same time, then change in the moment, right? So what you kind of want to do at first is just do reviews. Like, let's say you interact with someone, you go on a date or you hang out with a friend or whatever, or you're at work and there was something that happened. review what happened and go, okay, where was the disconnect? Was it in my body language? Was it in my vocal tonality? Was it in my actual choice of words? Like, where was the disconnect? It's always going to be on one of 4 levels, and I'll make a video about this. This is one of the things that I had written down recently. It's going to be fundamentals, which is facial expressions, body language, hand gestures, tonalities, or your choice of words, right? I've used that word a lot. You probably know what I mean by fundamentals. It could be on your frame, which is like your specific personality, your views, your beliefs, political beliefs, philosophical beliefs, what you think is right, what you think is wrong, all that shit, right? It's going to be on the level of your awareness. Like, are you actually aware of what's going on, right? Either yourself or them. Because if you're aware of their personality and frame, then you can change your fundamentals to kind of like interact better with other people, right? And I don't mean you be insincere or fake, right? There is a difference between being diplomatic and being fake, okay? And then also being aware of your intentions, right? Oh, did my phone just die? No, it didn't. Okay, that was weird. Probably maybe someone was calling me or something. I saw my video lagging. Anyways, it's going to be your intentions, right? So what are you actually intending to have? And you need to have these intentions be good, right? Because if you're having bad intentions, no wonder you're having fucking problems, right? Obviously. So fundamentals, frame, awareness, or intentions. These are the 4 pillars of socializing and dating, right? Somewhere on one of those 4 levels is your issue, okay? And you're going to have awareness is kind of like the key to like the 3 others, but it is a thing in and of itself as well. Because without that awareness, you don't know if it's your fundamentals, frame, or intentions, but whatever, right? We're just going to call it the 4 pillars of socializing. Where is your issue? So the next time there is a problem on a date or talking to a friend or whatever at work, review it and go, where was the problem? And then how do I fix it? Now that's the hard part. Like, what exactly do I fix it? But if you find out the problem, usually the solution is the opposite or some degree of opposite. It might not be, you don't have to go all the way over here. You just maybe go like here, right? But you have to experiment. If you don't have someone who's there to like say, oh, do this, do this, do this, you have to experiment. And you have to go, okay, do I go this far? Do I go this far? Do I just go a little bit? Do I actually go in this direction? That's where it gets really difficult. But it is a starting point. And that's why coaching is really helpful. So obviously, if you're interested in some personal coaching, whether you want to get a girlfriend or a wife, and improve your relationship life, or if you just want to learn social skills in general, because seduction skills is just social skills plus the man-woman dynamic, but half of it is social skills, right? Or if you just want to become a more social guy in general, and just I've seen so many things evolve in people's lives from what I teach, right? Not just their dating lives. I've seen them decide to change their profession or, become better at their profession or, have better friendships, have better relationships with their family because they were improving their social skills, because they were avoiding the disconnects that happen on such a frequent basis. You're not even like every conversation I have with people, I'm constantly going, they made a mistake there. They made a mistake there. They made a mistake there. Or I made a mistake here. I made a mistake here. And I'm constantly like, I could have used this tonality. I could have used this body language. I could have used this choice of words, right? Like when I had that situation where I had that little problem with that guy in the kitchen, I ended up calling him out on it and we had kind of an argument. And there was a moment where I was kind of laying down the law, like, hey, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, where I probably went too far, where I made a comment that was more insulting than I think I intended. Or no, but maybe I did intend it. I wasn't quite aware. I let it slip out because I was angry with how he was treating me. A lot of what I said was true and cool, and then I just took this one extra thing and it triggered him. And I noticed I noticed it after that, he kind of changed his tune, and he went from like understanding to combative. And I was like, fuck, I should have just left that shitty comment out and just kept the rest of it. And I think it would have been much better. Right. But we're always learning. Right. But the only way you're going to know is go, okay, somewhere in this conversation, I fucked up. Was it at 30 seconds? Was it at 2 minutes and 55 seconds? Treat it like a video, and you just rewind until you find the miscommunication or all of the miscommunications. And then you find a solution. And if you don't have someone to like tell you it's this or this, then you have to start experimenting. There's no other way you're going to learn, right? So you either carve the path yourself or have someone else point out to you don't go here, turn left here. But all misunderstandings, what you say or want to say versus what people hear, are happening somewhere on these 4 levels of your fundamentals, your frame, your awareness, because even your awareness can be visible through your fundamentals. Like I said, there's a lot of layers here. Like I could go on and on. Like, let's say you have an argument with someone and you say sorry. You may betray that you're not totally sorry because you don't fully understand what you did wrong, because in your fundamentals, you're like, yeah, I'm sorry. They can see you're not genuine. I'm sure you've had situations where someone's like, okay, sorry, bro. And you're like, are you really though? It doesn't feel like it, right? And that's because you can see in their eyes, some people just aren't always there, right? They're just like kind of like half off. It's like, not all the lights are on. There's some lights that are on, but not all of them. And you're like, I don't think he fully fucking understood what I just said. Like, he's just staring off into the fucking void. And the conflict was not resolved because you can see through their fundamentals they are not aware of what they did wrong, so therefore their sorry isn't really a sorry. And then that will infect the relationship. Like, I had a friendship recently where there was it's the stupidest thing, and I won't even get into the details, but it was a consistent thing happening while we were playing games, but it was fucking annoying, and I kept pointing it out, and he kept doing it, and I was like, okay, this dude is clearly just not aware that he's, like, being, shitty. He's showing his personality while we're playing games, right? And it's just consistently pissing me off, and I've pointed it out, like, 10 times, and then he did it again, and I was like, okay, clearly this guy, but I knew he didn't lack awareness either, because we had talked about it, and he got upset over the same thing someone else did, and then he did it, and I was like, dude, we've talked about this like 10 times and you just did it again. Like, clearly you understand what you're doing, but you're not really sorry. And what's funny is he still hasn't said sorry. Like, I literally just grabbed my shit and left. I was like, dude, you're wasting my time. Like, you're just being an asshole. And I left the house, and the dude still hasn't like realized what he did wrong. Right. Or he did realize, but he has too much of an ego there's so many, right? Is it his awareness? Is it his intentions? Is it his fundamentals? Right? But there's so much miscommunication going on in your life with everyone. And unfortunately, you're going to have to be the one to make the change because nobody else is going to, dog. like the baton is in your hands, bro. I'm passing the fire to you because fucking nobody else is going to do this shit because it's hard. It's hard. Right? It's really hard. But someone's got to do it. And you're going to have the better life. And they're just going to keep kind of doing this. And you're going to go because you are actively improving the way you communicate, which is going to affect everything in your life, from the professional to the family to the romantic. Okay? So I've overexplained myself enough, right? I've probably violated my own principles on several occasions already, but I'm trying to teach you something. So I would rather overexplain than underexplain. But I guess if I was a perfect teacher, I would know exactly the right amount. And maybe 29 minutes and 18 seconds is too long. I guess I'll just go fuck myself. All right. Love you guys. Good luck. If you're interested in coaching, hit me up on Instagram or in the link in the description. Check out my day game course if you're interested in finding the future love of your life through day game, best way to find her. And then obviously get my texting book because you guys suck at texting, because your intentions and what she reads, that's why the book is called What She Really Means, what you intend to say and what she reads and what she intends to say and what you read are fucked up. And that book will help you fix that. So I'll see you guys. Ciao.